Kota was a disgusting lonely loser who spent most of his time doing nothing, just like you all. But one day everything changes when he gets attacked by a ghost who curses him and starts appearing in his room every single night. He starts experiencing paranormal activities every single night that scare the shit out of him, so he finds the witch of the school and joins her occult club to deal with this problem. Soon he starts discovering that there are several people in this world with special magical abilities fighting against an evil organization, and finds out that he has the most overpowered ability of them, all which makes him the strongest in this world. It all started when he decided to go on a random walk outside because he is totally jobless and has nothing better to do. He walks through the forests while looking at the pretty night sky, when suddenly he reaches a cliff where he spots a young girl sitting beneath the tree. He tries to call out to her, asking who she is, but this girl turns out to be super toxic, just like my ex, and screams at him for absolutely no reason. Kota falls to the ground, and without any hesitation, the weird bitch straight up stabs him through the heart with her cute little ribbons. Thankfully, it turns out to be a dream as Kota wakes up sweating and decides to go out for a walk to get some fresh air. Before he could go out though, he hears a knock at the door only to find out the MILF who lives next door, who is also the mother of his childhood friend Riri. She tells him that Riri hasn't returned home yet and asks whether he could find her and get her back. This is very normal for Kota, so he nods and leaves the house towards the overgrown forest in order to find his friend. Riri was always a loner who liked to play alone inside the forests, and he always had to find her and get her back. Thankfully, he shoved an apple AirTag up her butt, so now he can track her. He walks through the forest, spotting some weird-ass creatures, but soon he finds the stupid bitch sleeping beneath a tree. He tries to wake her up, but she doesn't want to wake up at all. Thankfully, he knows that she is a gold digger, so he grabs some coins out of his pockets and starts jangling them in front of her. She immediately starts following the sound, and slowly, but surely, they reach her house. By the time she wakes up, she is confused what just happened, but Kota tells her to simply go back with the MILF and sleep for school the next day. He also starts walking towards his own house when he feels like someone is watching him. This scares him, so he immediately hides beneath his blanket and tries to sleep. Something is definitely wrong though, as the gate of the balcony opens on its own and a mysterious wind blows his blanket apart. He starts having visions of a girl biting his hand beneath the blanket, but when he checks it, there is nothing here. He gets up with a sigh, thinking it was just a dream, when he spots the wet spot on his hand where someone bit him. He somehow manages to survive through the night and immediately starts heading towards the school alone, as Riri is late as usual. He walks through the beautiful city that every brain-dead vegan in the world wants to live in and finally reaches his classroom. He greets the class bully Haru, who gets mad at him for no reason and starts threatening him. Haru decides to ignore his major life problems just like I do, but this time the problem is too angry and grabs him by the collar. Kota asks what's the matter with him, and Haru angrily asks whether he forgot what happened last weekend. Kota doesn't remember anything, but he forces his small pea-sized brain to think and remembers how he was being annoying to Haru by playing jokes on him as if he was a friend, and also breaking a major bro rule by peeing right beside the urinal Haru was peeing in. Kota tells him that it was just a joke and promises Haru that he is average-sized. But Haru was mad and challenged him to a duel in front of the entire school. Kota is dumber than a coffee table though, and replies that he doesn't have any Pokemon cards. Haru gets even more enraged and tells him that he meant a fistfight outside the school, and surprisingly enough Kota agreed, but never went to honor the duel while poor Haru waited outside. Kota finally remembers everything, but it's too late as Haru decides to take revenge, but is stopped by Lucia, the class representative, who tells both of them to sit their asses down when they are in her hood. Both of them are shocked by her African-American accent, when suddenly their teacher Nishi, who is a total cutie, tells them all to shut up and sit down. This makes Lucia angry at Kota as she tells him that his ass is dead now. A little while later Riri also arrives in the class, but before Kota can talk to her, Haru interrupts him once again, claiming that he will even fight God if he ever made fun of him. This cringy line makes Kota laugh out loud, which pisses Haru off again, and he grabs him by the collar and shouts that in 10 mins he will face throttle him. This sounds very gay and makes Kota laugh again, and he was about to get face throttled when Riri steps in and tells them to stop. She asks what the issue is, and Haru tells her about the duel they were supposed to have, but then Kota ghosted him and stood him up completely. Riri is a very modern woman, so she supports all the LGBT RGB rainbow ass people, and tells Haru that he should simply hook up with Kota already as he clearly likes him. She also tells him to lube up, while Haru shouts at her to shut up as he doesn't want people to ship him with Kota. But it's too late as everyone hears this while Kota plays along and tells Haru to be gentle with him. This completely ruins the taste of the fight and he sits back down on his desk while Kota wonders whether they can be friends as all three of them are outcasts and loner with no real friends. That evening, he returns back home and goes back to sleep, only to wake up in the middle of the night to feel heaviness on his chest. He removes the blanket to see what's up, when he spots a girl inside his blanket again biting his arm. This freaks him out and he blacks out completely, waking up the next morning with a red mark on his arm, wondering whether he got cursed by Haru. While walking like a blind fuck, he ends up stumbling over a box and notices a young ginger-haired girl stuck on a tree. He is a very dutiful stepbro, so he helps the stuck girl get down as she explains that she is a new transfer student in his school and accidentally ended up stumbling down the hill and got stuck on a tree. Kota decides to help her like a gentle man, but this sissy is so weak that he can't even pick up the box filled with books and starts shitting his pants, while the girl manages to grab it easily. He can't let her carry it, though, as his toxic masculinity will get injured, so he tries to grab it out of the girl's arm, but they both end up falling down. This creates a bad first impression as the girl calls him a weak pussy boy before running away towards the school. Unfortunately for them, the girl ends up getting transferred to the same class as him. She introduces herself as Kai and is an instant success amongst the touch-deprived incel of his class. The teacher makes her sit beside Kota, but the moment he tries to talk to her, Kai grabs the heavy table above her head to smack Kota, but stops at the last moment and puts it down. This even shocks Haru, who wonders what kind of freak this woman is. But Kota is simply excited at the thought of getting dominated and runs off to the bathroom to relieve himself. While walking out, she meets up with a loli named Shizu, who is his junior, and promises to have lunch with her one day. While he was walking away, he is stopped by a student journalist, who, like any American journalist, starts asking questions about Trump. Kota refuses to answer any political questions, so she fucks off, but drops a small piece of paper, which Kota pockets shamelessly. Later that day, after the school was over, Kota properly apologizes to Kai and asks whether she would like to get the tour of this city. She likes the proposition but refuses because she has to meet some family members at her house today. Kota decides to head back home as he is totally jobless and sleeps, only to see the weird ghost in his blanket again. This time he tells Riri all about it, and she claims that this might be the work of the witch in their school. Haru has no idea what the hell is this Otis talking about, but Riri replies that this girl is named Sen, who never attends any classes and spends all her time in the Ghostbusters Club, but always passes with good grades for some reason. They decide to ask around for information about this girl and the occult club, and even tried to hire Haru to work with them, but he told them to shove it before heading out. Even after spending countless hours asking about the occult club, they come back with no information when suddenly a nerd walks up to them and hands them a book published about the occult club of this school. It contained all the information they needed, which makes Kota really happy as he dances with the nerd before saying no homo. With the newfound information, Kota decides to check out the occult club with Riri after the school, so they head out towards the club room, which looks like a mansion in itself. They turn on the lights after getting jump scared a bunch of times. They find the room to be covered with exquisite furniture, and books about paranormal activities line the bookshelf from top to bottom. This occult club was becoming even more mysterious than it already was, but Kota thought that people might not stay here after school, so he writes down a note, asking help from Sen about a ghost problem that he is facing. Later that night while sleeping, he gets bitten by the ghost again and tries to switch on the light, but fails miserably. He then tries to escape out of the room, but the room has been magically locked. He immediately picks up a baseball bat and rushes towards the balcony, but even that is locked. Suddenly, the girl beneath the blanket starts coming out with ribbons flowing before her. While Kota wonders whether this is the end for him, but thankfully the light turns on and the ghost disappears immediately. The next morning, he walks into the occult club, sleep-deprived, but still finds no one inside the room. But this time, the notepad was scribbled by someone who wrote that Kota will die in 2 days. This scares the crap out of him, but he soon notices a questionnaire laid out on the desk for him. It asked for basic information about his problem, so he filled it in and left for his classes. After the school was over, he was approached by Chi, who asks whether his offer to show her the city still stands, and Kota simply smiles before nodding in agreement. Riri ends up overhearing this and starts shipping them as well, as she thinks Kota is a man-ho. Later that evening, Kota takes her around the nearby parks on a peasant bike as he pedals through the beautiful surroundings and shows her all the major landmarks. After they were done for the day, Kai bids him farewell and moves back towards her own home. while Kota gets a message from the witch Sen to meet her late at night. Kota decides to follow her instructions and jumps through the main gate of his school at 2 a.m. and uses Google Maps to locate the classroom in which Sen wanted to meet. Unfortunately, he finds the room empty but spots the writing on the blackboard, instructing him to go in another room. He goes into different rooms on a wild goose chase for a long time before getting tired and stopping for a drink. He wonders whether someone is playing a prank on him when he suddenly feels like he is being watched. He thinks to himself that it must be his imagination running wild when suddenly a beautiful white-haired girl emerges from the stairs above. But Kota's blood runs cold at her sight, as she turns out to be the same girl from his dream who killed him with her ribbons. He immediately starts running away from the ghost girl while screaming like a little bitch. But no matter how much he tries to run, the ghost girl seems to be hot on his trail constantly. He runs through the never-ending hallway before deciding to jump into a room. But every door seems to be locked, so he resumes running away like a bitch when suddenly a bunch of weird-looking Pokemons emerge from a room randomly and run away. While Kota manages to hide in a staircase before popping a can of soda as he wonders what the hell is happening to him. Before he could think straight though, the ghost girl arrives once again and scares the crap out of him as he leaves the drink and starts running again. While the ghost girl uses her magic to grab the can and starts drinking. Kota rushes downstairs where this blind fuck ends up running into a huge door in front of him, scared that the ghost girl will catch up to him. He enters the mysteriously large room when suddenly the door ends up closing behind him, trapping him inside. He wonders whether he will ever escape this place when suddenly he spots a weird creature running around the area. This scares him, but he decides that enough is enough, and when the creature tries to attack him, he punches the little bitch right in the face, knocking it down. The creature turns out to be a weird plant-insect-fairy amalgamation born of an orgy who starts crying out in pain. The fairy tries to attack him again, but this time another white fairy dropkicks the fairy of color just like in real life and tells her to get civilized as they are not supposed to be seen by humans, let alone attack them. The white fairy calmly introduces herself as Panny and the green bitch as Gil, who has a hobby of licking blood. Kota introduces himself and realizes that he must have scratched his hand while running as blood starts coming out, exciting Gil, so he decides to help her out and gives her a little blood on his finger. This green fucking freak starts deep-throating his finger like no tomorrow while he tries his hardest to flick her off his fingers, and they start moving through the room while Panny tells him that they are like plants and only need water and sunlight to survive. Kota is still not sure what they are, but now that they are more or less friends, he decides to move forward with them. When they suddenly spot a big black monster sleeping in the distance, Kota immediately pisses his pants while Panny looks at Gil asking where the fuck is she taking them. Gil replies that she never knew the way and was just going with the flow, so Panny tells her to back off while she takes the lead. She tells everyone to stay quiet as they don't want the monster to wake up. But while moving, Gil ends up sneezing, which wakes up the goddamn monster, while Kota realizes that they are as good as dead. They start running away as fast as possible, while the monster chased them and started trying to attack. Kota realizes that one good hit from that monster would mean the end of them, so he tries to dodge, but they end up getting thrown away by the shockwave to the ground. Kota sits back up and turns around only to see the goddamn ghost girl in front of him once again as she calmly drinks her soda. Kota wonders why she is still after him when he realizes that she will get killed by the monster if she doesn't look out. It was too late though, so he runs ahead and pushes her out of the way, saving her life. This ends up knocking the drink out of her hands though, which pisses her off, and she starts attacking the beast with her ribbons while Kota watches in awe. He had no idea she was so strong as she single-handedly pushes the monster back and smacks the shit out of him, forcing the monster to use his magic beam. This is not enough though, as the ghost girl simply uses her magic shield to block the blast before using her own magic beam to blast the monster, causing him to lose control and hit the ceiling of the room. The monster ends up swelling and was about to explode when the ghost girl uses her ribbons as a spear and stabs the monster, while the ground beneath Kota splits open and he falls through it. When he wakes up from his fall, he finds himself back in the school hallway in front of a weird-ass statue. He looks around for Gil and Panny before wondering whether it was all a dream, but the statue had a note telling Kota to bring it into the occult club. Kota follows the instruction and grabs the statue before walking into the club room, which he finds empty once again apart from a glowing crystal ball and someone sitting on a chair. He walks up to the crystal when the person spins around to reveal that she is the witch and welcomes him to her club room. The witch introduces herself as the third-year student named Sen, who is also called the witch by a lot of people inside the school. She takes off her hood to show beautiful flowy white hair as she asks what's the problem he is facing. Kota tells her all about the ghost girl killing him in his dreams, then appearing in his room every night, biting his hands, and whatever happened tonight with the big black monster. Sen smirks and sits down on her Alienware gaming laptop, punching on keys and moving her mouse. Kota seems to be impressed by the witch having such modern technology and asks whether she is using a software for ghost detection, but Sen simply shows him that she was playing Counter-Strike and typing racial slurs in all chat because she lost an eco round. He asks her to take him seriously, so she shuts the laptop down and grabs the questionnaire survey before telling him that his symptoms seem made up even to her, which annoys Kota, but the witch tells him to calm his tits as she is going to give him a protective charm. This relieves Kota a little, but when Sen starts chanting some weird spells and hands the charm over to Kota, which turns out to be a fucking paperclip. Kota wonders whether this hoe is making fun of him, but Sen tells him to sit down and hands him some paper cutouts as well, claiming that they work despite how they look, but tells him that he will have to come in for repeat appointments, and to make that easy, he is going to join the occult club as well. That night, he goes back to sleep and has a dream of waking up in a heavenly place in front of a blonde girl named Tomo. She tells him that she is the guarding spirit who will try to protect him at night to make sure the spirit that is tormenting him doesn't affect him. It turns out to be true as the ghost girl enters his room. But immediately, one of the paper cutouts blow in the wind and gets stuck in her mouth. The ghost girl immediately spits it out and moves towards Kota's bed, but the charm seems to have caused an allergy as she starts sneezing and walks off back to the balcony before disappearing. The next morning, he wakes up and finds one of the cutouts crumpled on the floor and wonders whether he will ever see Tomo again before heading out to school. Before going to his class, he decides to check the storeroom where the massive monster attacked him, but this time it just opens up to be a normal storage area with garbage inside. Confused, he goes back to his classroom where he is greeted by Riri, who asks whether he is feeling okay. Kota immediately tells her about what happened yesterday, but Riri shuts him up as she doesn't want to be associated with a dumbfuck. Later during recess, he goes down to have something to eat when he notices Haru minding his own business, but this retard decides to play a prank on him for no reason and hands him a sundae while acting like a lover at a bar. Haru is much smarter than this dumbass and tells him that it must be poisoned or something, which turns out to be true as Kota put a shit ton of hot sauce on it. Haru pushes it over to the side where Lucia was sitting with a similar sundae, while Kota ends up grabbing the wrong glass and brings it back to Haru. The bully gets pissed and tells Kota to take a bite first, which is a problem. But Kota decides to be a man and takes a bite, only to find out that it's sweet. He suddenly realizes what has happened and tries to stop Lucia, but it's too late as she starts gulping down her ice cream without any issue. This confuses him, so he snatches it out of her hand and takes a bite, only to get red-faced and sweaty by the hot sauce. Lucia gets super pissed by this and walks up to him before delivering an uppercut that would put Mike Tyson to shame and leaves. Later that day, he visits the occult club again and shows the crumpled up charm which Sen throws in the trash heartlessly, while Kota immediately takes it out crying about Tomo. She tells him to calm the hell down as there is nothing like a ghost in this world. This surprises Kota as Sen is the president of the occult club, but she claims that she just wanted a private room, and the previous occult club was dissolving so she took it on. She claims that every single paranormal activity can be explained by science, including what he saw in the storage area the other day. Kota is against this and claims that people do have special powers, which gets Sen's attention as she asks whether he has any powers, but he refuses nervously, looking very guilty. Kota makes it a challenge and claims that if he proves that ghosts exist, then he can play with the president's stress balls. At first, she takes out an alarm made for molesters, but Kota immediately breaks it, claiming it was a joke. But finally, Sen agrees to his demands. That night, while he was sleeping, the ghost girl enters the room again, but this time when the charm moves to block her, she immediately snipes it down before jumping into Kota's bed. Thankfully, Kota had Chipotle for lunch, and his toxic farts force her to leave the room immediately. The next morning, he takes Riri with her to the club, claiming that she will even join and help him investigate supernatural stuff, and Sen agrees without any issues, as she is too busy playing Counter-Strike and can't give two shits about Kota. Suddenly, Kai enters the room as well, and is shocked to see Kota and Riri working on the club website, and claims that even she is a member of this club as she is related to Sen. Later that night, the ghost arrives inside the room once again and gets into Kota's bed, who wakes up from a happy dream only to see the white-haired ghost. He falls crawls out of bed and tries to run away as the ghost stands on the bed, but disappears immediately after. The next morning, he gets some more charms from the president, so he also brings Shizu into the fold so that she can help him as well. This degenerate slowly starts creating a harem, but Lucia gets the wind of it and immediately enters the clubroom and physically abuses him for no reason before claiming that even she will join the club to make sure Kota is kept in check. Sen again can't give two fucks and tells them all to shut their traps when she is clutching a 1v3 situation, while Kota takes the lead and starts creating strategies to find out whether supernatural stuff exists in real life or not. The next morning, he attends the assembly where the school festival is announced, exciting everyone including Kota. While returning back to the clubroom, he meets up Haru and asks whether he would like to be his date for the festival no homo. Haru tells him to back the hell off and leave him alone with his quirky bullshit. So Kota decides to head back to the clubroom where he finds a blue-haired guy standing already. Kotaro is shocked to see a rival male in his harem and was about to start a fight when the president comes out of the bathroom and explains that this man is named Sakuya and he is Kai's butler. At that very moment, Kai enters the room and is surprised to see Sakuya, who immediately hands her a lunchbox which she forgot to take. She thanks him while Sakuya tells Kota to stay away from Kai and never take her name. Kota is not a guy who can be pushed away from his harem, so he takes on his challenge and calls Kai by her name and asks her to get back to the class with him. Back in the classroom, Kota wonders how rich Kai is to have such a dedicated butler when Lucia heads up to the blackboard. Kota's ADHD ass forgets all about Kai and starts thinking about Lucia's gloves. He asks Haru why she wears gloves on her hand, while Haru tells him to shut up as he has no idea about it. Kota asks whether he thinks Lucia can be Michael Jackson in disguise and hee-hee over them whenever she gets a chance, which worries Haru a little. Kota starts imagining even more dumb shit by thinking that the glove might be necessary to prevent her dark magic from hurting other people, while the annoyed teacher tells both of these retards to get some help. Later that day, they all enter the club room where Kota finds a new request on the club website about a snake monster spotted on the campus. He decides to make this their first club activity, so they all disperse into the nearby bushes as the search for the snake begins. While looking through the bushes, Kota ends up grabbing a handful of Lucia's luscious ass, but it gets him a swift uppercut, which was totally worth it to be honest. Suddenly Riri shouts that she just saw the snake, as a short stout-looking snake slithers from one place to another as everyone tries to grab it. When finally Kai grabs it easily, as it struggles in her arms, suddenly the snake gives one more pull and tries to rush into the bushes. But Kai, with her incredible strength, overpowers it and yanks it out again, only to find a woman with a fishing pole who was controlling the snake. She turns out to be a corporate employee who got too tired of listening to her dumbass bosses, so she decided to scare some children as a pastime activity. Technically, the case was solved, so they move on from there. Later that night, when he was heading back home, he notices the ghost girl on top of the building, but she starts running away while a giant dog chases her. Kota immediately makes a move and starts chasing them, while remembering Sen asking him whether he has any special powers. It turns out that he has an ability called Rewrite, which lets him copy anyone's physical abilities, so he uses it on the dog and starts running incredibly fast while jumping onto the buildings. He soon loses the sight of the ghost girl and comes to a stop when he suddenly senses someone behind him and turns around to see a yellow-haired boy, claiming that he was after that ghost bitch for a while, but since he lost him, he will now deal with Kota. He immediately takes out another demon dog from his hand, which starts attacking Kota. Kota starts running away and dodging the attacks before entering a sewage line where he starts panting out of exhaustion. Before he could catch his breath though, the dog breaks through the ceiling and enters the sewer, forcing Kota to run outside towards the exit. He immediately climbs out and jumps off a cliff only to fall down to the ground, knocking the breath out of him. He struggles to regain consciousness as the dog breaths down its neck, but through a blurry vision he spots a man coming to his aid and killing the monster immediately. When he wakes up again, he finds himself in a ramen shop with the owner and the Monopoly Man. The Monopoly Man tells him that he found him in a park and asks whether he is okay. Kota wonders what to say, but tells the truth by saying that he was chased by a monster dog who attacked him out of nowhere. Surprisingly enough, the Monopoly Man and the shop owner don't seem too concerned and claim that these monsters have increased in number in the recent years. This gets Kota's attention as he asks whether they can tell him more about it. So the Monopoly Man introduces himself as Asaka and asks him to visit his antique shop shop one day where he can learn more about these things. Suddenly, a young girl sits down on the ramen shop who turns out to be Shizu herself, who is a regular at this shop. Soon, the entire shop gets crowded by all the regulars who come here to drink and eat, and after having dinner, Kota drops Shizu back at her home and starts walking towards his home when he meets up with Sakuya, who is out to get some ice cream for Kai. Kota asks whether ice cream this late at night, but the butler tells him not to question Kai's orders and claims that a lowlife should stay away from her. The next morning, he goes back to the clubroom and excitedly tells Sen about the man he met last night who knew a lot about these magical creatures. Sen tells him that there are a lot of dimwits in this world, so only bother her if he has hard proof. Hearing this, Kota decides to head off into the part of town where the antique shop should be located. But this area doesn't seem to have the best people in it, as half of them look like they belong in Skid Row. He walks through the streets before entering a dark and dingy alley blocked by a bunch of delinquents. They walk up to him and ask where is he from. So Kota reveals the name of his school, which seems to surprise the man who asks whether he is from the same school as Haru. Kota is surprised to hear that name, but the delinquent claims that earlier this entire area used to be a cesspool of degenerates and bullies, but Haru single-handedly beat the crap out of everyone and created an order so that everyone can live peacefully. Kota immediately claims that he is Haru's friend, which changes the way these delinquents talk, as the man tells him that if Kota is the same age as Haru, then it means that he is older than all of the delinquents here. Kota is shocked to hear this, but his tone changes immediately as he tells them to stop wasting his time and show him the shop. They soon direct him towards the shop and bid him farewell, while he enters the shop alone to find a squeaky clean store while Asaka cleans his antiques. He looks around the store and spots Shizu inside eating a sandwich and sits down alongside her. Asaka soon joins them and shows him a bunch of blurry pictures of weird things spotted in the area over several years, which really excites Kota as they decide to take their leave, and Kota thanks Asaka for all the pictures. They soon start walking through the street as the sun sets when Shizu stops on the way and gets some sprouts from a sale to have for dinner. Kota knew that she was pretty poor and lived alone in a rundown apartment, but he never asked why this was the case. The next morning, he went back to the club and showed Sen all the pictures that he had gathered, but she was totally uninterested as she continued fragging inside Call of Duty, trying to get a new kill streak. Tired of all this, Kota heads back to his class, thinking about how he needs more charms from the president as his previous ones have run out completely. He remembers the ghost girl again and wonders why the demon dogs were after her. This makes him think about the yellow-haired man who attacked him, as he realizes that he needs to be very careful of these attacks on him. Suddenly, his thoughts are broken when the main door of the class opens, surprising everyone, but it turns out that none of them can see that the door was opened by the ghost girl. They wonder whether it was the wind, while the ghost girl calmly walks by all of them and heads over towards a shocked Kota. She calmly grabs his arm and starts nibbling on it, scaring the crap out of him as he tries to suppress his scream, while Haru wonders what the hell is wrong with this incel. A little while later, the girl dropped his arm after having her fill and walks out of the room as if nothing happened. Kota immediately excuses himself and runs towards the club room to show Sen what the hell just happened and ask for more charms. But before he could enter the room, he runs into Shizu, who asks him to follow her as she wants to show him something. She takes him outside where he finds their class teacher Nishi standing in front of her car. They all get inside while a confused Kota asks Nishi what the hell is going on and what's her relationship with Shizu. Nishi claims that she can't really reveal anything, but tells him that they are heading towards Shizu's old home and asks Kota to believe everything that Shizu tells him, as she never lies. They reach their location by the time the sun was on top of them, and Kota walks with Shizu towards her old house. They soon reach a small but cozy little home with a beautiful bed of roses in the garden. No one seemed to be at home, so they decide to wait outside, and they wait for a long time. But by the time the sun started setting finally, a yellow-haired MILF walks towards the house, a little surprised to see Shizu. She asks whether she has seen her before, and Kota was going to say that Shizu was their daughter, but she stops him and tells the MILF that she just really liked the roses and was looking at them. Soon her father also arrives, and the MILF tells the man about how this little girl liked their flowers, which makes them happy, while Kota wonders what the hell is going on. Suddenly, a little girl emerges from the house, who is clearly Shizu's younger sister, as the parents immediately hug her, asking whether she was missing them. Shizu quickly jumps up and starts leaving while telling Kota to follow without saying anything. On the way, Kota asks what was up with that, and she reveals that she has a special power, and because of that her parents don't remember her. She touches Kota on his face and asks what her name is, and suddenly Kota can't remember her name anymore. He tries really hard and keeps failing, but never gives up and finally remembers her name. This really surprises her, but looking at his dedication, she decides to tell him about herself. She claims that she used to live in this house when she was young. Their family was a little poor, but led a very happy and peaceful life as they loved each other very dearly. Her father worked very hard to provide for the family, and their lives were going pretty well as her father managed to save enough money to get them a better house. Unfortunately, tragedy struck and something happened in their house, resulting in a mini explosion which covered the entire house with fire and injured her father dearly while blinding her in one eye. It was then that she discovered that she had some special magical abilities, which she used to stabilize her dad's condition till the authorities arrived and took them back to the hospital. She was taken to a different facility, however, where she was operated upon, and ever since that day her eye ended up changing color to become golden. Thankfully her dad was also fine and soon made a full recovery, but their house was gone, and they were back at their old home. One day, some people of a special institution who saved them on the day of the incident entered their house and claimed that Shizu was a special child. They offered her parents a shitload of money to let them take Shizu to the special facility which takes care of children with special powers. And because Shizu wanted them to lead a happy life, she ends up agreeing to the deal, thinking that with the money, her parents can live a more comfortable life and she will visit them often. The facility was very nice and let her visit whenever she wanted, but soon she realized that the money has changed her parents, as they are no longer the loving people she knew, and they have grown vain. They fought with each other often over stupid issues to a point where one day while trying to stop their fight Shizu ended up losing controls of her power and blasted them with her magic, making them forget several years worth of memories, including the memory about the birth of their daughter. The good thing was that her parents returned to being the nice people who they were before all the money, but they forgot all about her own daughter, which forced her to leave the town and relocate somewhere else. Later that night when they were driving back home, Shizu ends up sleeping while Kota asks Nishi whether she also works for the facility. Nishi smiles and nods in agreement, but refuses to divulge any further information. He asks why don't they help Shizu live a decent life instead of how she lives like a homeless person now, but Nishi reveals that Shizu actually has a shitload of money in her bank account, but she is saving everything to get the same house that her parents wanted to have. He gets dropped off at his home that night and says goodnight to the rest, before heading back to get some sleep. The next morning when he comes to school, he notices that the baseball team is shouting at Lucia to throw the ball back at them, which is near the flowers, but she stands there, unmoving, and claims that they should come and pick it up themselves. Hearing the commotion, both Riri and Kai arrive at the scene and ask why can't she simply throw it back at them, but she refuses. Kota immediately goes ahead and throws the ball back into the field, but Riri decides to push Lucia and asks why the fuck does she act so high and mighty as if everything around her is dirty. Lucia seems very stressed and tells her to shut up as it's not her choice, but Kai continues, claiming that she is even acting as if the flowers are dirty, which surprises Riri, who claims that flowers are super pretty. Lucia loses control and pushes Kai over, claiming that she doesn't know anything before running away while Kota wonders what's up with the class representative. A couple days pass by when the occult club receives a weird email from a girl who tells them the story about an old orphanage which was shut down near the area. Apparently strange things started happening after a new girl named Asahi was introduced at the orphanage. Whenever she was nearby, strange things would start happening, like windows breaking, flowers dying, and even farm animals started dying. Slowly but surely it became a big problem, as this started affecting the students and the teachers there, who started falling sick and many of them died. Because of this, the orphanage was forced to shut down and the children were scattered into many different schools. One of the guys who got transferred told the sender of this email that Asahi had dark magic powers looming over her. And sure enough, 4 days later, he also fell sick and died of a mysterious illness. This definitely seemed like a paranormal case to Kota, and the best way to figure out whether the story is correct is to ask Haru, who was in the same class in the same school during this incident. He calls him during the evening and asks about the incident, but Haru doesn't seem to have any interest in answering his questions, but warns him that if weird things start happening, including broken windows, he needs to run away from there. The next morning, Kota gets his hands on the list of students from that class and gets it photocopied while Lucia was using the machine. But to his surprise, the photocopier spits another paper with a note saying "Do not wake me." Suddenly all the windows of the school break, which reminds Kota of Haru's warning. Lucia stops him and asks what's all this about. But Kota claims that it must have been a coincidence and asks for her help as he wants to clear the name of this poor cursed girl called Asahi. Lucia can somehow relate to this girl and agrees, but on the way home, glass starts shattering around her, while a phantom girl tells her to stay away and let her sleep. Lucia runs back home, but the girl follows her back, claiming that they suffer the same fate, while Lucia trembles in the corner of her room. The next morning, Coda realizes that Lucia is absent again and wonders what's wrong, so he calls her, but gets no reply. Later that night when he was walking back though, he suddenly hears a girl telling him to stay away. He gets scared and cornered against the wall. When he realizes that it was Lucia who was saying all this, suddenly she loses consciousness and falls while Coda grabs her and takes her back home. He remembers the story Shizu told him about Lucia, thinking that she is cursed because during junior school she made a bunch of things die coincidentally. Ever since then, she started thinking that she was dirty and began wearing a glove at all time. Finally, Lucia wakes up in his bed and realizes that there's no point pretending anymore. So she walks up to the plant and grabs one of the leaves, which immediately withers away under her touch. She tells Coda that she is cursed and shouldn't touch anyone and starts crying while Coda tries to calm her down. Lucia ends up smacking his hand away and runs into the corner crying. White Coda realizes that the curse is starting to work on him as well. The next day, he decides to visit the orphanage where it all started and enters the church where, while watching a picture frame, it breaks completely. Coda smiles and calls Lucia out, claiming that he knows she is the Asahi that he is chasing after. And sure enough, Lucia emerges from a corner telling him that he should have never gotten involved in this. Coda smiles and claims that he realized that she was the one breaking all the glass, and she must have been the one who wrote that note from the copier. But Lucia tells him that she did it for good reason, as no good will come in trying to get near her. She tells him to walk away and forget about all this, when Coda realizes that the curse is reaching his heart and he starts breathing hard before falling to his knees. Lucia immediately realizes what has happened and starts tearing up at what she has done, knowing that not even the hospital can save him now. Coda tells her not to worry though and uses his rewrite ability to change his physical attributes to Lucia's, which means that he is now resistant to the curse. Soon the pain subsides as he gets up again, shocking Lucia, who can't believe her eyes. He grabs her hand, claiming that she shouldn't be alone in this world as it's simply too sad, and promises to always be with her. Lucia breaks down and hugs him as she cries when suddenly the church gets surrounded by some people in hazmat suit and guns. Lucia immediately tells everyone to calm down, and it turns out that one of the hazmat-wearing person is none other than Nishi. She takes them to a hospital, where Coda undergoes a series of checks which surprises Nishi, as according to the test, he seems to be naturally safe against Lucia's curse. He finally asks her what the hell is her actual job, and Nishi reveals that she works for an organization called the Guardian, who assemble any person with a special ability and train them to use their skills for the good. This is all to prepare for a fight against an evil organization of vegans called Gaia, who want to eliminate all the humans from Earth so that it can get repopulated by trees. She tells him that they are making sure that these vegans never succeed in their project, and asks Coda to take care of Lucia. Coda smiles and tells Lucia that she doesn't need to worry as him, and the entire occult club will always have her back and will support her through any adventures coming her way.